Did you ever talk back with the Yes, sir.
Okay. Are we now recording?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call today's meeting to order. It is 5:41. With that, we will kick off our agenda with welcoming remarks. Dr. Pickett, if you will begin us by introducing yourself. We're going to work around.
Gabriela Pickett, board member.
Stanley Hurdle, board member.
Dr. Debbie Fox, board member.
Loretta Jackson, Chief of Staff for Commission.
Norma Dickens, senior attorney.
Dawn Manuel, interim director, HR.
Mahal Jr., Executive Director, Human Relations Council.
Isabella Esposito, HRC.
Miranda Brooks, HRC.
Stephen Bauer of Professional Standards Bureau.
Andy Sexton, General Counsel with the Dayton Police Department.
Eric Henderson, Assistant Chief, Dayton Police.
Jasmine Corey Jones, Independent Accountability Auditor.
Bill Parlett, Deputy City Manager.
Dr. Howard Jordan, board member.
Kathy Hall, board member.
Brandon McLean, Chair. And I do note here, for the record, we are gathered here by a multitude of observers here in the room, one being the petitioner and other supportive family. In the interest of welcoming remarks and introductions, I would be remiss if I did not move on and give praise and admiration for Simba, who has departed, and he is going to a different line of support community. But I believe that we owe him a great duty of thanks and gratitude for his support of the Citizens Appeals Board, Human Relations Council, and all the other things that he does that we know nothing about. So let's give him a round of applause. And with that, we are with the first order of business. We open it up for a roll call.
Brandon McLean,
Present.
Stanley Hurdle,
Present.
Catherine Hall,
Present.
Dr. Howard Jordan,
Present.
Carolyn Griffin, Dr. Gabriela Pickett,
Present.
Reverend Dr. David Fox.
Here.
Next agenda item is the approval of the minutes. I do note that the minutes, for those of you who are following along, were previously provided. They are also present in our workbooks directly behind the green tab. If anyone has any questions, concerns about the minutes, I'd like to hear them. Otherwise, I will open the floor for any motion to accept the minutes without change.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, there's a motion to accept the minutes without change. Is there a second? Motion being made and properly second. All those in favor of approving the minutes as they have currently been submitted, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There being none, motion carries, and the minutes from the last meeting, and specifically that is from March the 4th, are hereby approved without any changes. Next, we move on to the appeal. Communities Appeals Board case number 2025-02, Braylon Brewer and Aaron Trice. At this time, we will open the floor for the presentation from the petitioner. Do want to also let everyone know, just in the interest of transparency, prior to us beginning this meeting, we have been struck by several technical difficulties. And so certainly want to hear from the petitioner and any witnesses that you have today. The board will not be deliberating or voting on the matter today because some of the members were unable to view vital pieces of evidence. In addition, we would like to give additional opportunities if after review of that, we find the need to hear more additional information from you. So I believe it is Ms. Brewer.
I am Ms. Brooks, as
Ms. Brooks, excuse me. Ms. Brooks, generally speaking, we have testimony from the petitioner. My understanding is that you were the aunt and you worked very closely in assisting with the development of this. I believe that good cause exists to hear from you, and we will allow you to call each one of the respective petitioners as a witness. That means that you will be limited to 10 minutes to present your case, and they will have 5 minutes to present thereafter. Okay. All right, ma'am, if you will go ahead and come up above here, and you will begin, and we're going to keep a timer, and we'll let you know as you work through the time.
Is it okay if he comes up with me now, or does he need to wait?
He can come up and have a seat, but he won't be able to speak until the conclusion of your time.
Absolutely.
And also, before you begin, once you get up there, raise your right hand and we're going to place you under oath.
Okay.
That's all right.
Now, you know, the funny thing is that, you know, this is my role in real life. I just don't play this on TV. That's the funny thing about it. All right, Ms. Brooks, if you will raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Brooks, you may begin.
Okay. Okay, good evening. Good evening. I am Maria Brooks of Dayton, Ohio, in Montgomery County. And as mentioned, I am the aunt of Braylon Brewer. I'm joined today by Braylon, his parents, his grandparents, and other family members, as you can see. And let me just first say that our family has the very deepest respect for the work and protections provided every day by the Dayton and Trotwood Police Departments and the Trotwood the police departments in our surrounding communities. Our concern today is with the actions and lack of accountability of a few officers as it relates to the night of December 20th, 2024. So again, first, thank you for permitting me just a few minutes to speak about why I disagree with the findings of the internal affairs investigation and upholding of the actions of the officers who very clearly profiled, targeted, stalked, and detained my nephew and his friend Aaron. They then illegally seized and searched the vehicle they were driving on the evening of December 20th, 2024. We are here because we don't know how an officer of the court or an officer of the law could review the information and the videos that we saw from the ensuing investigation and find no wrongdoing or civil rights violations by the officers. And so, as you know, our family accompanied Braylon and Aaron to file a formal complaint on December 23rd for the way in which they were handled on December 20th, 2024. I could stop there. And as I still stand behind the contents of the initial complaint, as it was detailed, it detailed civil violations, prompting a request of an internal affairs investigation. We believe that the dash and body cam support what the young men shared with their families from the very beginning and the sequence of events as we initially submitted the complaint. It is clear from the videos provided that the young men and the car they were driving were profiled, targeted, and stalked. This was not a standard traffic stop and was inflammably labeled a felony failure to comply without merit and no probable cause prior to the stop and illegal seizure of the vehicle. Their vehicle was immediately seized. The event was immediately custodial, and they were cuffed and placed into police cars at gunpoint. The driver's rights were read to him with no reason having been provided at that time for being placed into custody relative to any criminal violation, traffic, or otherwise. And during the incident, the young men were repeatedly given misleading and untruthful answers as to why they were being detained. One of which first was the window tint, for which no ticket was issued and no established tool for measuring or confirming tint levels was used or documented. Also, the dealer tag. They were told by officers that it is illegal to drive with a dealer tag unless the driver is actively test driving a car. Officers would have had no way of knowing under what legal circumstances the young men were driving the car until after they pulled them over and interacted with them and identified the inhabitants of the car. The fact of the matter is that they had permission to drive the car and the vendor tag was legal and current. The video footage records officers referencing the possibility of the tag having been reported stolen in the past, no doubt during some level of prior ownership. That is not probable cause. No hit for having been presently reported stolen is documented on the night in question. Some of the established legal uses for a dealer tag, yes, indeed, are for test driving a car from a dealership, but also a loaner vehicle, and I'm sure people in this room have experienced this. A loaner vehicle provided from a dealership or a demo car, which a dealer may allow a driver or potential customer to keep for an undetermined point of time to test drive, or a demo car driven by dealership staff. Officers had no way of knowing what reason the car contained a dealer tag. And I would submit to you that the aggressive profiling and stalking of the vehicle and/or show of force would not have been pursued in Oakwood, in the Centerville, or other areas outside the west side of Dayton neighborhood simply due to the existence of a current legal dealer tag without prior knowledge of this information. I further believe that the untruths that they were told were veiled attempts to conceal what is abundantly clear from the video to me, which is that a task force of some sort, I believe it was referenced as ICE, was investigating something or someone unrelated to this car and unrelated to these young men in the area of Oak Ridge Drive when they dared to drive in that area in a car that they and people their age perceive as cool. It is clear from the footage that the officers were not traffic cops or police, but rather a task force who chose to weaponize that car against whoever was driving it, and by any means because of the area they were driving it in. And again, no probable cause. Officer Cagle, in his e-signed document titled The Special Report, referenced conducting a traffic stop with Officer Cody Lindsay at about 8:15 p.m. However, video footage clearly shows the officers in coordination with other units hurriedly racing to find and target the car, beginning at about 8:07 p.m. and 8:07 and 44 second point on the front camera video. They were doing this from miles away before they even had the video, the car in view or remotely in sight. They were already stalking the car at the request of a detective in an unmarked car with intent to determine the car stolen or parts of the car stolen via use of a decoder instrument. This was the intent. I would think that the intent was to confirm the accusations of speeding or illegal window tint at that time or date, that the appropriate equipment or for measuring and confirming either of those accusations would have been equally as essential, available, and used to document. However, that was clearly not the intent. In more than one instance during the video footage, officers can be heard speaking with a bit of urgency about making sure that the decoder tool was available so as to determine whether any part of that car was stolen, with a perceived intent to make the case after already having initiated the case. Officer Cagle and Lindsay pull up to the car, which is sitting idle at a red light at the 8:10 and 26 second mark per video footage. The blue team report says that they initiated a stop at the red light. This is inaccurate. They approach the idle car, turn on their overhead lights, exit the cruiser at the 8 o'clock and 8:10 and 30 second mark, and within less than 5 seconds, Officer Cagle very discreetly places the terminating stop stick device under the rear passenger side of the car. His motions from the video indicate that he is attempting not to be noticed. It's clear. He does this not in pursuit or as a result of an attempt of the young men to flee, because the car was still sitting idle at the red light at the time. He didn't do this because the young men had failed to comply. They were at this point not even aware that they were being pulled over. No sirens can be heard, and neither officer attempted to approach the car. There is clearly only an attempt to damage and disable and seize the car by using the stop stick and removing Braylon and Aaron from the car. Again, I believe for the purpose of searching the car, using the decoder in efforts to it appears to manufacture a case. And the shock by the group is evident in the videos when they see that neither the car nor its inhabitants are who and what they presumed them to be. That instead they had ruined the evening and property of two young men who are students, who work, who are beloved by their families, and who dared to drive a cool car on the west side of Dayton to drop off a family member. Those are the facts. after which they left them there, unable to leave in this criminally damaged car. And I quote from the video, "Oopsie daisy, but good luck on your toe." These are comments I'm referencing from the Poteet BWC redacted Axon body video. I would further reference my initial complaint regarding the process for escalating and filing the complaint. I was clear when I called dispatch that I wanted to file a formal officer complaint. I initially requested a shift supervisor to the scene. I believe it to have been unethical and presumably a violation of order of command when the sergeant that was present and part of the issue contacted me to take my complaint and was further dismissive of my concerns at the time. I now know that the process was further impeded when I went to file the complaint in person at the Professional Standards Office and with the Dayton Human Relations Council. At the Internal Affairs Office, we filed the complaint with Lieutenant Eric Sheldon, along with 5 other witnesses, one of which included another representative of Internal Affairs. And at that time, we requested direction on how to submit a written public records request. Lieutenant Sheldon offered at the time to file that on our behalf. At the time, I requested that he and the other officers sign the document and give me the originals. This written document included requests for the following: all body and dash cam of all responding officers. In the information that was provided, I do not see a report from the officers who returned the IDs of Braylon and Aaron, which were taken away from the scene by the officers who seized the car and we believe violated their rights. So they left the scene with their IDs, sent other officers back. We have nothing from those officers. I did also request all individual reports or accounts from responding officers, which Mr. Bauer has explained to me that depending on the nature of the case may not always be necessary. Also, I requested personal records of any and all responding officers, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, majors, or other representatives of the Dayton Police. And as of last Friday, I think, May 2nd, this information still had not been provided. Detective Rodney Barrett, who I was directed to by Lieutenant Sheldon upon completion of the investigation, has to this point failed to return calls or emails. So this is information that has not been included in the information that you have to review. And lastly, the impacts of it all. Costs, which are at this point undisclosed, for the initial damage to the car, and the young men had no issue with the car prior to this, but from that day for weeks after that, even after they attempted to repair the car, they continued having issues with the car. It impacted the young man, my nephews, traveled to school 2.5 hours away, and the job that he works. Also, standards set for unwarranted accosting of civilians in their neighborhood and community. And it also brought on anxiety around interactions with police versus feeling protected and served, as is the scope of police, who are civil servants first and expected to adhere to a code of conduct in their interactions with the public and civilians. And so it is with these and other factors in mind, which I believe are apparent in review of the video, transcripts, and the disparities and unavailability of information, that I hope that this board will reconsider the results of the internal investigation, reverse the decision, and provide direction for next steps towards accountability and reconciliation. Thank you.
Ms. Brooks, thank you for your statements. At this time, I believe I'm going to open it up for any questions based upon your testimony from the respective board. If anyone has any questions at this time.
Yeah, one.
Go ahead.
What evidence do you have in reference to, you said targeting, the officers targeted the two, I don't know if they're juveniles or young adults. Do you have any evidence to show that?
What the video shows is, and what the report from the detective in the unmarked car says, is that he viewed the car driving erratically and speeding. Braylon will speak to that. There is no documentation of that. I personally don't believe it, but let's say it happened. He then calls in to what is supposed to be presumed as traffic police to stop.
Hey, can I stop you?
Yes.
I'm asking you, do you have evidence? I'm not asking you to rehash it. I'm asking you, do you have evidence?
Sir, I wouldn't have evidence. I'm not the police. What I'm referring to is the video and the comments in the video. And so what you see with the police officers driving quite hurriedly from across different areas to find the car, and they're commenting. They're saying, I'm not going to be able to get around the snow truck. They already know the car that they are looking for. Before the car is in view, they know what they are looking for. They bypass at high speeds other cars to look for this car. And so if that's not targeting, I'm not sure what it is. And I hope that answers your question, but again, that's my opinion.
Any other questions for Ms. Brooks from any member of the board? All right, does not appear to be any. Ms. Brooks, do you have any witnesses that you would like to call, whether that be Braylon Brewer or Aaron Trice in this matter?
It is Braylon Brewer.
All right. Ms. Brewer, if you'll go ahead and step forward, and if you will, once you get up to the podium, raise your right hand and I'll place you under oath as well, sir. All right, sir, if you will raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that you will tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Brewer, you have the floor. What is it that you would like for us to know in addition to this matter that Ms. Brooks has now already brought to the attention of this board?
Okay. So on December 20th, 2024, a friend and I had left Childwell High School after watching my younger brother play in a basketball game. I went to drop my other brother out to the studio to record his music near Oak Ridge Avenue. Then headed back towards Childwell High School for the varsity basketball game. It is very disappointing that attempting to do something so small resulted in being targeted, automobile damage, and anxiety of the situation escalating to something potentially far worse because of what I feel was manufactured traffic stop. We have broken no laws, traffic or otherwise, at the time that we were sitting idle at the stoplight on the corner of Little Richmond and Olive Road. Dash cam and AI investigation clearly showed that police aggressively pulled up after driving a good number of miles at faster than average speed to specifically orchestrate and target the stop of our vehicle, which was sitting idle at the time, then approached and had not at the time been observed or visible to the police approach that approached us. We initially saw police lights. We assumed that they were waiting for us to move so they could go around because we did anything wrong. It did not dawn on us that we were there for us, that they were there for us stopping at the red light. Once we saw that the lights and that the police didn't go around, we turned the corner to move more out the way on the shoulder of the road. At which time we realized something was wrong with the car. The dashcam video displays an officer disabling the car before we were even aware that we were the ones being approached by the police. We never made to feel this way was a routine traffic stop. From the very beginning, we approached and treated in a hostile. We were approached and treated in a hostile manner, and as though we had committed a heinous crime. When we asked officers what we did wrong, we were told it was because of our window tint and the dealer tags. The way officers pulled up to us as witness on dash cam, they did not allow us time for them to have viewed and determined our tint was legal or determined that the dealer tag on the car was legal. We never felt that we were free to leave. We were not asked for our driver's license or registration. Also, we were not asked for permission to search the vehicle. We immediately detained the car. We were driving was illegally searched, which is how officers were able to confirm our identities. because we had already pulled our IDs out and placed in one seats prior to being instructed to exit the vehicle at gunpoint. After officers realized we had done nothing wrong and the assumptions they made about us in the car we were driving were wrong, we left there with no ability to freely continue on our way as the car had been seized by way of criminally damaging it. It did not, during pursuit and attempts to flee. Officer threw a stop stick at the rear passenger tire well. The car was not moving. The light was still red. No officer had approached us while we were had approached us, and we were not clear that we were the officer's target for the traffic stop or otherwise. This is viewable at 8:10 p.m. and 30-second mark of the Lindsay Cagle front camera video. The light was red about to turn green. Officers had exited the car. Within 3 to 5 seconds, throws a stop stick at us at the light. We attempted to turn the corner, not during any commission of a crime. I reject the reason officers gave for stopping us. Felony failure to comply. What felony failure to comply could have possibly been received? At no point did we fail to comply with any officer request once it was clear that we were the subject, however, unwarranted. We did not attempt to flee as we were never made aware we were being stopped, pulled over, since we were simply sitting when we noticed the police lights. We had no reason to believe police was there for us. I hope the board takes facts, actions, comments in the videos into consideration, and over time the findings of no fault. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Brewer, thank you for your statements. Does any member of the board have any questions for Mr. Brewer based upon his statement?
Okay.
Go ahead, Doctor.
So help me to understand, when these stop sticks was placed under your car, were you at the light?
Yes, sir. Show it on the video.
Well, I haven't seen the video. I'm just asking you a question. So you were at the light, waiting on the light to change. Then you proceeded to go around the corner.
Yeah.
But the sticks was already placed up underneath you before you went around the corner.
Yes, sir.
And the police officers had guns drawn on you and made you get out of the car just for tinted windows.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for any other member of the board?
Yeah, concerning the tinted windows, we have some pictures. It's hard to see. One of them looks like you can't really see whether there's tinted windows. It's usually the driver's seat window and the other window on that side that's subject to that law. Are those windows tinted or not? They are? Okay. And, okay, thank you.
I got one question.
Go ahead.
I thought I heard you say that the officer, or at least one officer, told you the reason for the stop was tinted windows, and your complaint number 4 said that there was no reason.
They wanted to get around and say that. We already told y'all.
Okay, I thought I heard you say that the officer said that there were tinted windows.
May I intervene?
You got any more questions? There's my auntie right there.
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you. You were there.
I just told you.
So no one told you the reason for the stop.
I just told you.
Could you say no one said there was a reason for the stop? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Brewer? All right, sir, you may have your seat. Do you have any additional witnesses you'd like to call in this matter?
Not additional witnesses, but I do have additional comments.
Okay, this is your portion, and you have 5 minutes to make a closing statement if you so desire. Would you like to do that?
I would like to.
Okay, yes, ma'am. If you will go ahead and retake the podium. Thank you.
Okay, I won't take that. There were just additional questions. My nephew is 19 years old. This is new. And that's not the alibi. It takes a lot to get up here. And especially when you feel like you've been doing wrong and you tried to do everything right. That's not wrong. To the questions about the police officers, when they removed them from the car, they did not tell, there was no opportunity for them to tell them. This was not a traffic stop whereby officers approached the car, asked for license and registration. Sir, to your question about targeting, these officers came from other areas at the request of someone who was not there. When they get there, and you can see from the way that the report is tailored to suit the events after the fact. So when they removed them from the car, there was no conversation about the why, even though they had done nothing wrong. It was not until they had them in custody that they told them, and the boys had to young men had to repeatedly ask, what did we do wrong? At that point, they were told tent, and they were told dealer tags. Our argument is that these police officers were coming, they had not followed them, pursued them, observed them. In the video, if you've not had an opportunity to watch it, they were driving from other areas. They were commenting over radio to each other in an attempt to look for and seek them. So at what point did you observe that the tent was too dark? And then how do you measure and quantify that? Because I'm aware that there's a tool for that. That's act, just like there's a tool for that decoder that they were so anxious to use. So that is the issue. Likewise, where they had not followed them to know what was happening about the dealer tag. This was information that was provided them for a detective that was looking at something else. Until this car rolled through a neighborhood that apparently they had no business driving through. In the car, they had no business driving, no matter how legal it was. And so that was the issue, and I just wanted to say that that's the frustration you see coming from. Are there any other questions?
All right, ma'am, that will conclude your closing statement. Thank you so much for taking the time and your comments. With that, does the police department have any evidence they would like to present or a statement that they would like to make in closing?
I will, as I always do.
Brendan, can you question the police before they make a statement, or do you want them to make a statement and then we question it?
Well, the questions will come if they present evidence. So that was the first part of the statement. Go ahead, Mr. Sexton.
As I always do, when I receive the notice of public hearing, I send that information to the involved officers. I'm not exactly sure when I got notice of public hearing, but on April the 11th, I sent the notice to the sergeants and the officers involved. I indicated that attached is a notice of public hearing for the above referenced case scheduled before the Community Appeals Board on May 6, 2025 from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. in the PRC located in the City Hall mezzanine. Please let me know as soon as possible if you're attending. I received a message back from the FOP president saying, thank you for the invitation. The listed members will not be attending. Please reference all reports and data retained by the police department in reviewing this case. So they were invited to attend.
Does any member of the board have any questions for any of the representatives here from the police department?
I have a bunch. I understand that several of my colleagues on the board have not got a chance to watch the videos. I did get to watch them.
Not everybody got
And
that.
have a number of questions based on them, but it sounds like there was some technical problems with some people viewing that. So just as a procedural matter, I wonder, you want to go ahead so that in case.
We've got it handled. If you have any questions though, you can ask.
Questions of the police by way of soliciting additional evidence that you think might be helpful for all of you.
Go ahead, Mr. Earl. Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, there's talk about this being a felony stop. perhaps different from a traffic stop or something? What exactly is a felony stop?
Information that, as far as I've read, where the window tint speeding and the dealer plates, those would not be felonies. However, if the officers believed that the individual was fleeing, and it's apparent that they subjectively believe that at some point, in Ohio, in October of 2024, all fleeing and eludings are now felonies. There's no longer a misdemeanor fleeing and eluding. So whenever there's a fleeing and eluding, I'm not saying the individuals were fleeing and eluding, so don't misunderstand the statement, but in Ohio, in October 2024, every fleeing and eluding is a felony. So in their mind, if they're doing a fleeing and eluding, if they were fleeing after their initial stop, it would have been a felony at that time.
The felony stop, is that like making them get out of the car with guns pointed and walk backwards and all of that? Is that a felony stop?
Ops people talk to you about that part. I'm not sure.
So there's a couple of different classifications of stops. There's an unknown risk stop. There's also a felony risk stop. There's different factors of it. A lot of times the officers will just refer to it plainly as a felony stop. It helps clear up communication when there's an urgency, which there often is in that type of situation. Some of the factors that would be in relation to the felony stop is any potential risk to the officers. So in this circumstance, the vehicle's taking off from you. A lot of times there's a reason that that vehicle's taking off from you. These guys this night were working a violence deterrence initiative in attempts to curtail some of the recent gun crime that we've had, specifically in that area. That's why they were in that area. There were some things that arose their suspicion. In addition, dealer tags, we often see those used on stolen vehicles. When they ran the registration for the dealer tag, came back a duplicate plate, which means it's prior. So the officers that were working this had prior knowledge of a potential, I would consider it an issue with leads, where when duplicate plates are stolen, the duplicate plates that were stolen, there's no differentiation between the ones that were stolen and the ones that have been replaced. So in leads, it only says duplicate plate, whether it's a stolen one or not. So there's that potential issue of suspecting it's a stolen vehicle. Vehicles driving at a high rate of speed, according to the report, 50 miles per hour in a 25 zone. You see the window tint. And then in addition, some of the evidence that I saw in reviewing the video is just prior to the stop, the officers see the vehicle go into the center turn lane. So it's a solid yellow line with dotted yellow. They actually go into that lane as they're approaching that stop. So I think the combination of all those different factors, the totality of circumstances, is probably the reason that they chose to do that.
Okay. The term rocking plates is used a couple of times by officers. What does that mean?
Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Rocking plates is used by officers a couple of times. What does that mean?
I'm not familiar with that.
That's the plates that were on the car. A couple of the officers called them rocking plates. Anybody know what that means?
Are you saying rocking?
Rocking, like rocking horse. It's rocking plates is how it's translated. That's what it sounded like.
I don't,
You
I'm
know-
not familiar
who
with.
knows what, that's not some.
Sometimes there's
criminal-
issues with the translation. I don't know if they're saying something else. I'm not familiar with that term.
Stanley, I've watched the video several times because they put the transcript together. The way I understood it was a casual way of them saying they have plates on their car that are the tags are questionable, I guess. So it's just saying they have those tags, but they're saying they're rocking those tags.
Oh, like rocking.
Yeah.
Like rocking using the tags.
You're like using you. It's a way of saying using. You're rocking those shoes. You're rocking those tags.
Okay. I didn't see any video of the supposed speeding that happened. We've had other cases where the outside video of the car, the police car would show the speeding I didn't see one here. Is there one, to your knowledge?
I'm not aware of that. I believe the person that observed the speeding was an unmarked detective. Unmarked detectives, they don't have cameras fixated to their vehicles to record violations. They typically, if they're working a detail like this, they'll wear a body worn camera, but body worn cameras oftentimes do not catch that. It's going to catch the dash components of the. No, I'm not aware of any video that's capturing the speed.
I thought I saw a reference that the sergeant, the one who does have a video, was the person who saw it in some document or other. Is that, did I misread that or?
I had the same conclusion. It's the Blue Team investigation by Sergeant Gallagher. Second paragraph takes that.
There was a video by him, but it didn't show, it starts later, I believe. It doesn't show this supposed speeding event that may have triggered this whole thing. Right?
That's correct. And that would be consistent with what we see.
Okay. This violence deterrence operation, what, can you explain what that is about and why that would get involved in some speeding ticket situation?
Absolutely. So the Violence Deterrence Initiative is a operation that we do in order to curtail gun violence. A lot of times these are organized, pre-planned events where we bring additional personnel in order to do proactive details, proactive enforcement. Whether that be traffic stops, whether that be field interviews of individuals on foot. The whole purpose is intelligence led to a specific area where we're having gun violence. The areas that we're in there very specifically for a reason. The times that we're there is very specific. Everything that we attempt to do in those is very specific and intelligence led. I don't know exactly what information you want on it. Feel free to ask me something if I can get more information on it.
In such an operation, if some teenager is driving recklessly, do you end up with 4 or 5 cars and armed police making them walk backwards and stuff like that? Is that part of the operation, or is that?
There's a lot to that question. Let me dissect it. So is it unusual to have a lot of cars on a traffic stop for this? Absolutely not. The fact that there's 11 people on this, that's a little bit unusual. 5 or 6 people, yeah, that's pretty consistent with those. The whole point of when we do those operations is we have a lot of people saturate in a small area. So the officers are backing each other up. The reason that's important is we're trying to make these operations as safe as possible for the public. So it's not uncommon for vehicles to take off from us in the city of Dayton. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody here. So when we have a lot of those officers in that area congregated, the vehicle takes off, and other officers down the street can deploy stop sticks, slow down that vehicle and prevent anybody from getting hit from it at a high speed. So it's not unusual at all to have a lot of officers. What was the other parts of your question, sir?
The felony stop and the guns held on these subjects. I mean, is that something that's happened because it is a violence deterrence operation, or is?
I think we're talking about 2 different things.
It's possible. That's
The totality of circumstances that I stated earlier, I think is the reason that the officers did a high risk stop rather than just walking up to them and approaching them and giving their name in a typical fashion that we typically do. I think that's the reason that they did that rather than because it's a violence deterrence initiative. We treat all traffic stops just based on hazard.
Was the window tint ever measured with the device we've seen in other cases?
I didn't see it.
I don't believe it was. I think typically that's done towards the end of a traffic stop. I think at that point they've made a up their minds as far as enforcement action, that they weren't going to do enforcement. If there's no point in doing enforcement, then they're not going to check the window tint. I think at that point, they decided that they weren't going to even write citations.
Okay. The business about the licenses, and it sounded like maybe that was the reason for the stop. You said something about them that they were duplicates, meaning that maybe these were the stolen ones and maybe they weren't. Did I hear that accurately? And can you say something about this whole business about these particular dealer plates? Why that was?
So when officers run registrations through leads, they get a series of returns back from the leads data terminal in their car. So when they run this information, it'll come back with the person that the vehicle's registered to, the driver's license of the person, driving record, warrants, if the vehicle's stolen, license plate stolen, a whole bunch of different factors that you get these multiple screens on. One of the things that they observed was they had the duplicate license for the dealer tag. That's what I was referring to.
So that means that the state issued those plates again after they were stolen sometime or other way?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
And is this usually a probable cause for a stop if you see tags?
Yeah, I think the attorney's chomping at the bit to get to that one.
I will tell you, as I was a prosecutor for 20 years, and dealer plates alone, I'm going to say that, dealer plates alone are not probable cause to stop a vehicle. Now, in this particular case, there were other things that I would argue, and we say probable cause, the real standard is reasonable suspicion, but in our parlance, we call it probable cause. But there were other things that, if the trier fact, if you will, believe to be true, would allow for the vehicle to be stopped. You got the observed speeding and the window tint. However, we had conversations when this came through. I've shared case law. I've had conversations with the highest folks in the department about not having dealer tags be the sole basis for a stop. So we have addressed that. I know the lieutenants talked to some officers about that already. And I was very clear that that alone would not have been sufficient. Now, that being said, the belief of an officer about, oftentimes in the past, I've found dealer tags to be on stolen vehicles. An officer can still use that information in the totality of circumstances. But if you're asking dealer tags alone, is that enough? It would not be enough.
The term "good luck on the toe," which also appears and was mentioned, I think, by the witness, does that mean anything to anybody? As I didn't understand what that meant at all.
Seemed like an unnecessary snarky comment.
Okay.
But I can tell you, I mean, one thing, so Major Brian Johns was the major that reviewed this investigation. I think initially was stated that it was done at Professional Standards Bureau. It was actually done by a supervisor in the division. So it was not done by Professional Standards Bureau. So that goes through several layers of review. And it ends on this particular one, ended at Major Brian Johns. And I can tell you, there was a lot of conversation about going forward, making sure that if we have a situation like this, to make sure that we're offering rides and things like that if they want us to stand by with our lights. So there has been conversation about that to make sure we take those things under consideration.
Taking up a lot of time, but the last issue I was concerned with is this business of taking the IDs and returning them, which there wasn't really anything about that in the videos that I saw. How that happened, why it happened, why that would happen.
So I'm going to go on two different paths, so bear with me for just a moment here. But as far as not returning the IDs, that happens on an occasion. It stinks when it happens. I've done it on accident on stops. And I find the person later and return it to them. Usually it's not a terribly big inconvenience unless it takes a little bit longer to find the person. Nobody wants it to happen, especially the person that's involved with it. Why there's no video on that? Typically, once the officers are leaving the scene, they're turning off their cameras at that point. It's in our policy that they activate the cameras once they're going to have some type of enforcement detail or something along those lines. So they probably just didn't reactivate them as they were returning the ID. So.
Okay, I'm done.
All right, Dr. Pickett.
Just going back with the tags, are there any stats on how often people are stopped with, questions of possible stolen duplicate tags?
On traffic stops, we do field interview cards. It does not always, there's no easy way to track stats on specifically how many times that happens. We do have obviously citation issues, there's fictitious plates and things like that we can pull that data.
Thank you.
On the Ambrose body worn camera redacted video, it was toward the end. I didn't put the timing on my note here, but it was after they were out of handcuffs, and I think they had their phones, and an officer said to one of the young men that they were going to need to take his phone if he doesn't put it in his pocket. So my question is, why is that? Because as far as I know, legally, they can record everything that's going on with their phone. So why would they make that comment? It was after they were out of cuffs and everything.
Yeah, I'd have to review it to see exactly which point you're talking about. I know typically in detention type situations, people don't have phones in the back of the cars.
They weren't in the back of the car. They were now outside of the car.
I don't know off the top of my head on that specific situation. I know I've reviewed the video multiple times, and I just don't recall that specific moment.
It was on the Ambrose one, probably toward the latter part of it. And I was just wondering, because in other cases, we've seen people have their phones out recording incidences, which I believe you've said they're allowed to do.
Yeah, we've put guidance out before that, just because someone's filming, they're allowed.
And they weren't filming, but they did have, and I can't remember which man it was now, but they did have their phone and they were told to put it in their pocket or that it would be taken away from them.
Any other member of the board have any questions for any representative here from law enforcement? Okay, Mr. Sexton, do you have a closing statement or remarks to make, sir?
I know.
All right. At this time, as we've already indicated prior to, just to reiterate, obviously there were some technical difficulties that were experienced by a number of board members that rendered it unable to view pertinent details and information, i.e. The videos that were captured, whether it be body or cruiser cam. At this time, the board is going to take the matter under advisement, which means that deliberation and subsequent decision thereafter will happen at the next meeting. Ms. Brooks, what that means for you and also for respective petitioners is that for the next meeting, if there's any request from any member of the board after reviewing those details, or we have any additional questions or any additional comments that we would like to make, then we will reach out at that time. But obviously, due to those technical difficulties, we're not going to be able to move forward with the conclusion. So the matter will be recessed until the next meeting.
And is that a month away? How far
It will
away?
be next month specifically. It is on June the 5th or June?
June the 3rd.
Excuse me?
The 3rd.
June 3rd. At that time, we will reconvene. Everyone would have viewed all of the information and been able to consider the details and testimony that was provided today, in addition to also the videos that were also presented.
And that will be a public meeting as well, so
Yes,
you
ma'am.
can be here.
Yes, and so you can come back at that time. Yes, ma'am. All of you are welcome back.
And just thinking about your process for that, when you come back and you render what your decision is there, do you give reasoning behind that?
Yes, ma'am. There will be a full-fledged discussion and deliberation. Also, I've discussed with most of you, but just so the record is clear, obviously I have a personal relationship with a multitude of you all. I know you from church. Considered the grandfather petition to be a good friend of mine, and he's helped me a lot throughout the years and vice versa. I think we we've been on the same accord. And so it would only be fair and transparent for me to acknowledge that to all of you, but in the same token for me not to participate with the meaningful process that must endure for justice to be sought.
Understood.
Okay. All right. And with that, you all are free to go. I believe we have a couple other agenda items, but again, the next meeting will be June 3rd. And come back and
Thank you so much.
it will be at 5:30 meeting. Okay. All right. Have a good day.
Same time.
Yes, sir. 5:30. Yes, sir.
Can I say something before everybody leaves?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As a grandfather to Braylon, I want all y'all to keep in mind one thing. These young men stopped because they felt like they didn't do anything wrong, okay? They was at a stoplight, okay? If they was running from something, why would they stop at a stoplight, okay? If they did something wrong, they should have been given a ticket, okay? They should have been arrested, okay? But your decision gonna go a long ways with this stuff, okay? Because I know that since that's my grandson, I know him back and forth, okay? Be conscious of this. If y'all do nothing, okay, what y'all doing is for these police, you're giving them a ticket to do something or do the same thing to somebody else who's following the law and who's conducting himself in a peaceful way. Keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay. So picking back up, that takes us to new business. I believe that there was policy recommendations for the Community Appeals Board, case number 2025-01, i.e. Reverend John Kimball. I believe those were submitted by Mr. Hurdle. Thank you, Mr. Hurdle.
Wait a second, so we can make sure we're getting everything on the video.
I'm sorry.
So can we just wait a minute for the noise to die down so we can, get
Absolutely.
the capture?
Yeah. You know, on a side note, I ain't used to having to wait. My voice, I feel like I'm trying to battle something off. I don't have that usual. You know, usually I'm like, the quiet storm, but today, man, I don't have that usual, Okay, all right. You said it sounds pretty stormy? I don't know. I usually, I'm right now a tropical storm. I'm trying to work my way up into that right before hurricane. I want people to hear me before they see me, Okay. So we are now on new business policy recommendations for Community Appeals Board, case number 2025-01, i.e. Reverend John Campbell. Mr. Hurdle took the time and prepared those recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Hurdle. I believe those have been dispensed to each one of the respective board members. And as such, everyone has had the opportunity to review said recommendations. Is there any discussion on the floor about the recommendations that they have been submitted?
I apologize because I read that like yesterday and I didn't write down everything and didn't print it off. But Stanley, did you discuss in the recommendations or just make a comment in the recommendations that the decision to arrest the individual was made by someone off site, and I don't believe we were ever able to identify who that person was. And so I think a recommendation would be that there's a good chain of custody or chain of evidence that demonstrate who's making the arresting decision, because it was not made by anyone that was on site.
I don't remember talking about that. I mean, this is just things I came up with,
Right.
so
So
hopefully
maybe if
everybody
we-
has recommendations.
I do want to say that those were Stanley's recommendations.
Right.
Um,
And I read that and agreed with everything that he had on there.
okay.
But I didn't remember seeing that, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it, because that was something we discussed in our deliberation.
What I wanted to say to the board too is because like we did before, when you gave recommendations, you sent them in a Samba. Like Stanley sent those into us. And then what we did was we compiled them for you.
Right.
And then gave them back to you so that you could vote on. So there's still a 2-week time frame. If anybody else has recommendations they would like to send to us, we will share those amongst you so you can all see what each other's recommendations are. This was our workaround so that you wouldn't have a meeting outside of the public meeting. And then we will compile those, put them together, and send them back to you. The 2 weeks gives us time to put them together, well in advance of the next board meeting.
And make any tweaks that you want.
Yes, and to add, I guess, on to both of those points, us voting on Stanley's recommendations does not preclude you from sending some during this next, for us also to subsequently vote thereafter on any other recommendations that may come in. Is that correct?
I think what would make it easy is if we get all of them and we vote on it together. So you don't have to vote on Stanley's now.
Okay, all right. So just so I'm clear, do you have some things you want to add?
I would like to add that because that was a concern of mine.
Okay, very well. Is there a motion to table Mr. Hurdle's recommendations until we have all other recommendations received by other respective board members? Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is it a second?
Second.
Motion been made, properly second. All those in favor of tabling the recommendations as they've submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? There being none, the ayes have it. Mr. Hurdle, your recommendations will be tabled until the next meeting, and that is on June the 3rd. All right.
Chair McLean, we ask that you send them by, if you have recommendations, we ask that you send them to us by the 16th.
Who are they sending them to without Samba?
Three of us.
Isabella.
Okay. All right.
We're working together right now.
All right.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, it takes 3 people.
Takes 3 people to replace them.
So we have came to the adjournment of the meeting. Thank you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Motion been made, properly second. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
I'm not gonna take the nays. Everybody have a great day. All right.